we talked about cancer. And what we said was cancer is nothing more than when a cell loses its ability to regulate how fast it divides. And the cell gets confused. And it starts dividing and dividing and dividing when it really should not be dividing that fast. And that's what this picture is of. Top picture. You see the cell in the box. The cell in the box is about to go bad, and it produces a many cells. Okay, that mass is called a tumor. A tumor is benign if it stays in one place. It becomes malignant if one or more of those cells travels to a new location. In other words, if it spreads, it's referred to as malignant. It becomes harder to treat when it's malignant, which makes sense. We spent, actually, the second period talking quite a lot about Riley. In fact, Riley shared quite a lot of insight into the trauma that he went through. And I thought it was extremely interesting, actually. He was, I think it was in the 7th grade or something. Yeah, you guys probably vividly remember that. So we talked, and it's interesting because he said, and I don't think he would mind sharing this, but he mentioned that he had surgery pretty much 3 days after they found out that he had cancer. It was in his brain, or like one of the lobes. I believe he said something like the side lobe of his brain. And how did he find out about it again? I think he said that he had really bad headaches for a while, and then his vision started getting really wacky. Remember what we said yesterday? We said what happens when tumor cells form is they grow in mass, and then they start blocking nerve connections. And that's exactly what was happening to him. Basically, you have areas in your brain that control vision, and what's happening is they were getting a little squelched out. So that mass needed to be removed. And so as soon as they figured out it was there, they removed it. Okay. Now, Riley, I even asked him, my next question was, well, do you still have, issues? And he said, well, yeah. He's like, and you guys have probably seen some of them too. He says he hasn't regained all of his vision back, so he has vision problems, which meant that some of those nerve cells that were surrounding that area were damaged, probably because of the bulk of the mast cells. So some of those nerve cells were damaged, and nerve cells, like we said yesterday, you can't make more of them. Damaged ones you can't make new nerve cells. And so, I don't know, sometimes the human body is kind of interesting where some of the healthy nerve cells will kind of reconnect them in ways to help with those processes. But in some cases, and he didn't seem to think that this would happen, it may not ever regain vision, his full vision again. So that's going to lead us to what we're going to be talking about today. Today, the word of the day is stem cells and stem cell research. And I'm sure you guys have heard that it's one of those controversial topics. And yeah, rightfully so. But let's at least kind of give you an idea of what it is and why it's controversial. I think that kind of makes it. What do you guys know about stem cells? What are they?
I don't know anything about stem cells.
Okay. So I got to give you a few big words, but it kind of all goes together. Before I talk about stem cells, I want to mention a general term, cell differentiation. Okay, I know I try to stay away from too many big words, but this is one I think you guys can understand. Well, look at the word, cell differentiation. The word different is even in the word. Cell differentiation is a process. Oops. It's a process when a cell becomes what they call specialized. Okay, and here I am using another big word to talk about a big word. But when a cell becomes specialized, the small words, gets a job. In other words, cell differentiation is the process by which a cell gets a job. Gets a job. What in the world is she talking about? Well, guys, at one point back in your development, when you were a few cells old in mommy, none of your cells had a job yet. None of your cells had a job yet. You didn't have muscle cells. You didn't have liver cells. You didn't have skin cells way, way, way back then when you were only a few cells big. Those cells were definitely what they call unspecialized. A cell that's unspecialized has no job yet. It wasn't destined for anything yet. Guess what? That's what a stem cell is. A stem cell is an unspecialized cell. It's a cell that doesn't have a job yet. It's almost like it's still a cell. Don't get me wrong. It's still it still has a nucleus. It still has all the organelles, all that. But it hasn't quite gotten to the point where it has a certain job. So it still has some changing to do. A stem cell is unspecialized. Now, that stem cell, though, is going to go on to become one of many cells. Maybe a skin cell, maybe a muscle cell, maybe a liver cell, maybe a blood cell. You have a ton of different kinds of cells in your body. All the words that are underlined are considered specialized. They have a job. Your liver cell has a job. Your muscle cells have a job. Your skin cells have a job. They have a very, very special particular kind of job. All right. Well, this is kind of interesting. Way back long ago, egg and sperm got together and they made you. And like I said, at one point back a while ago, about 1 to 2 days after egg and sperm got together, you were probably just about 4 or 5 cells big. All right. You had some mitosis going on. You were making cells, but you weren't very many cells. Those cells are definitely stem cells. Not only are they stem cells at that time, they are what's called totipotent stem cells. Okay, as far as like hierarchy of stem cells, that's like the ultimate best. The reason it's the best is if you were able to get a hold of those cells, you would be able to take a cell and you would be able to basically tweak the conditions and turn that cell into any other type of cell. Those are special cells. I don't know, 4 to 5 days later, there's some serious mitosis and cytokinesis going on, and you're just plucking, you're making more and more and more cells. You become kind of different looking. You're still basically just, you're more than one cell, but you haven't really taken on any kind of shape yet. You're still round. But you have a bunch of these cells kind of grouped to one side. In other words, you're kind of starting to change a little bit. However, you're still cells. And you're still a bunch of stem cells. These stem cells that I have here, these little tiny cells that are in the bottom, are stem cells. They're not totipotent anymore. They're what's called pluripotent. Oop, I spelled that wrong. Pluri. Pluri. Pluripotent. Pluri potent. Pluripotent cells. Okay, these things are pretty special too, but they're not nearly as special as totipotent cells. These things you would be able to pluck one of these cells out and produce many, but not all, types of cells. In other words, I could pluck one of those cells out from that cell right there, and I'd have the ability to, put it in a petri dish and grow it up, but it wouldn't be able to become absolutely every cell. Maybe it's just destined to become a certain type of cell, like a muscle cell. And it will become nothing more than like a muscle cell. It's just a little more specialized. Okay. Hey, the reason I bring up these words, recently there was a team that won the Nobel Prize. I don't know, recently if you've seen, they awarded the Nobel Prizes for 2012, and the team that won the Nobel Prize for medicine did all their research on stem cells, okay? And they, actually the word pluripotent was mentioned in there. What they actually did, and I have to read the details, they were actually able to take a mature frog cell and turn it and reprogram it and turn it into a pluripotent stem cell. How amazing is that? Pretty amazing. Anyway, as time goes on and you grow and you grow, your stem cells change a little bit more, and they definitely are getting closer and closer to having a job, and a more specialized job. And they don't become pluripotent anymore, they become multipotent. Now, multipotent stem cells are even seen in your guys' body today. You see them in these major places. Deep within your bones. By the way, I don't know if you guys realize this, but your bones aren't solid. They're actually hollow, and they have stuff on the inside, and the majority of what's on the inside is this kind of spongy stuff called bone marrow. And bone marrow is actually the substance that produces or makes your blood cells. In other words, I don't know if you guys realize this, you get to constantly make blood. Your bone marrow is making your blood. So your blood is made in your bones. It's kind of a strange way to think about it, but your blood's made in your bones. But you have this bone marrow that's in your bones, and its job is to make your blood. But blood is not one type of cell. Blood has actually a few different types of cells. You have red blood cells, and I'll just abbreviate it RBC. You have white blood cells, and you have these things called, if I can squeeze it in here, platelets. P-L-A-T-E-L-E-T-S, platelets. Okay, platelets are responsible for clotting your blood when you get a boo-boo. White blood cells are in your blood. They're responsible for keeping you healthy. Red blood cells are in your blood. Their job is to carry oxygen. In other words, your blood is made up of a lot of different types of cells. But you have one type of cell in your bone marrow that's responsible for making all those types of cells. So it's a stem cell. It's considered to be a stem cell. Now, I could never take a stem cell in my bone marrow. Like if I was able to go inside my body, go inside a bone and pluck out a cell and put it in a petri dish, there is no way that I could turn that thing into a muscle cell. It's destined to become one of these blood cells. Okay, so it's a little limited. It's still a stem cell, but it's a little limited in what it can become. So it's called multipotent. All right, here's the controversy. Think about it. How great would it be to be able to make new cells if they've become damaged? In particular, how great would it be to make new cells of the type of cell that can't make more of itself in the human body? Remember, we said nerve cells and muscle cells, you can't make more of those. They don't undergo cell division at all. So what you're born with, you're stuck with. So treat them with love kind of deal. So what if we could generate cells, inject them at the point where your cells are broken, like in a nerve, part of your brain or part of your nervous system, to kind of produce new cells that are going to kind of take over the job? That would be great. There are two different kinds of stem cells. There are embryonic stem cells, and there are adult stem cells. Okay. Embryonic stem cells, obviously, hence the word, they come from a fetus. Okay? However, they have the advantage of being totipotent. They can produce any kind of cell. Adult stem cells are obviously from an adult. The disadvantage is they are only multipotent. They can't, they're a little more limited in what they can become. You know, I'll put, just for the record, I'll put they're from an adult. I kind of reversed them, but you can reverse them in your notes if you want. So the embryonic cells are from a fetus. Adult stem cells are from an adult. However, embryonic cells are totipotent, like the all-time highest, best type of stem cell. Adult stem cells are only multipotent. They can't produce every type of cell, a little more limited. Okay, do you see where the controversy kind of arises?
Yeah.
In order, well, but it might not be what you think it is, though, either. In order to get embryonic stem cells, you've got to get them from a fetus. Now, what does this mean? Does that mean that the people who do stem cell research have to wait until somebody gets pregnant and then go into that person and put them under anesthesia and take out the zygote, and that's probably a few cells big, and harvest it, and then yay, they're all good? See, not necessarily. No, actually, no, that's not what they do at all. However, I'm curious of what you guys think. What they actually end up doing when they are producing embryonic stem cells, they do it in a petri dish. And they combine sperm, and they combine egg, and they put it in a petri dish and let it grow. So fertilization definitely takes place. And then and what they have done, and granted, this isn't just in the United States, this is kind of everywhere. When they produce embryonic stem cells for research, that's how they're producing them in a petri dish. So here's kind of where the controversy is. There's kind of this big back and forth. Does that mean, there's some scientists that would say, there's some people that would say that, well, since you're not placing those cells in an actual person, it's not considered conception, it's not considered like life, a living form. And there's other people who are like, no. That's, once you have egg and sperm meet, that's where you have conception and fertilization, that's what's born. So that's kind of the issue at hand. Everybody is different in what they believe. It becomes kind of that kind of deal. It also is a very religious affiliated thing as well, because, I mean, me growing up Catholic, definitely, I was always taught that conception or life begins when egg and sperm meet. That's very much the Catholic way, okay? But that's not how every religious group thinks. I was watching a movie, actually this is the same movie I was thinking about playing in class, but I'm not sure I'm going to. They actually sat down with a group of kids, but they had all different religious backgrounds. Some were Catholic, some were, I think Jewish, some were Islam, I don't remember what else. They had a big group of them. And they asked their opinion about when they thought life began, and every answer was different. It's really weird. So,
Let's watch it right now.
No, I don't know if we will. We'll see. So that, in order to get embryonic stem cells, to get the ones that are totipotent, you do have to harvest the cells just within the first couple of days of fertilization. Okay, so that's kind of that deal. That's how that works. Now, adult stem cells. Now, this is different. Remember, I said that in bone marrow, you can harvest these. I could go into any of you guys right now in your bone marrow and take out some stem cells. But they're not just in your bone marrow. You also have stem cells in your nasal cavity, believe it or not. I'm not exactly sure what kind of cells that those can produce, but they're in your nasal cavity. You probably heard of this one too. Yeah, in the umbilical cord, there's actually stem cells. There's people who have donated their umbilical cords after giving birth to science because there's quite a lot of stem cells in the umbilical cord. Okay. The nice thing about this, the adult stem cells, is that you don't have any of those ethical issues as far as having to harm your host when you kind of isolate those. So embryonic stem cells, that's kind of a little different. So questions? All right. You know what? I think we're gonna do a different activity. You know what? Zane, go ahead and close her down.
Woo!